On a flight known for its first-class elegance, a single moment shifted the balance of power and respect. In a cabin filled with gentle conversations and the soft clink of cutlery, a confident flight attendant, Ms. Harper, halted before a young boy clutching his ticket. Without hesitation, she declared that his seat was not meant for him. The quiet murmurs of nearby passengers spoke louder than any protest, each one silently acknowledging the unfolding injustice. This wasn't just a mix-up over seating. It was a stark reminder that assumptions can strip away dignity and leave deep emotional marks. The boy, whose name is now Ethan, sat quietly, his eyes reflecting a blend of confusion and resilience. Unbeknownst to Ms. Harper, Ethan's story carried more weight than a simple ticket error. His father, a man of unwavering principles, was about to reveal that respect and fairness are values that cannot be compromised. Welcome to Acts of Kindness Stories, where every tale inspires us to challenge our assumptions and treat each other with genuine compassion. Stay with us as we explore this powerful reminder of the impact a single decision can have, and learn how a moment of reckoning can lead to transformative change. The flight had already taken on an air of refined elegance, with the first-class cabin exuding an atmosphere of quiet sophistication. Luxurious seats and softly lit surroundings had long been symbols of success and comfort for those who could afford them. The cabin's ambience was punctuated by the gentle murmur of conversations and the soft, deliberate rustle of high-end luggage being stowed away. Amid this cultivated tranquility, every detail spoke of an expectation, of an unwritten code that defined who belonged in that space and who did not. In the midst of this orderly scene, one flight attendant, renowned among her colleagues for a steadfast sense of authority, moved purposefully along the aisle. With an air of unyielding confidence, she halted before a young boy whose innocent eyes betrayed an unassuming determination. Clutching a ticket that bore his name and a promise of reward, the boy sat in a seat that had been reserved for a different class of passenger. Without hesitation, the attendant's expression hardened as she made her judgment, leaving little room for debate. The world around them seemed to hold its breath as the moment unfolded in silence. Each nearby passenger bore witness to what many would later call an act of quiet injustice. For the young traveler, the experience was not simply about a seating arrangement gone awry. It was the first time he had ever flown alone, a moment of pride granted by a father who had worked tirelessly to reward excellence and instill self-confidence. Every detail of that flight was meant to be a celebration of achievement. Yet, in a twist of fate, the promise of that triumphant milestone was challenged by an abrupt assertion of authority. The boy's hand tightened around his ticket, as if to hold on to the validation of his accomplishment, even as he was forced to abandon his rightful place in first class. As the attendant's firm insistence grew, the cabin's ambience shifted subtly. The boy's journey from the plush confines of first class to the more modest economy section became a slow, measured procession, a transition marked by the heavy silence of those who witnessed the unfolding event. Each step he took down the aisle was imbued with a quiet resignation, a physical manifestation of an internal battle waged against the weight of unspoken prejudice. In that moment, every glance cast by his fellow passengers, every subtle shift of posture, spoke volumes about the unchallenged assumptions that permeated that elite space. The journey from one part of the plane to the other was not marked by overt outcry or protest. Rather, it was a passage filled with the unacknowledged hurt of a young boy forced to reckon with the impact of a single, unfounded decision. His path led him to an economy seat that, though humble in comparison to his deserved reward, became a temporary sanctuary for his dignity. The spacious openness of the first-class cabin, once a symbol of his achievement, had transformed into an arena where judgment was passed silently, and where an injustice was allowed to take root without confrontation. Meanwhile, behind the scenes in the service area, the attendant's confidence began to waver. Her routine, honed over years of managing flights with an assured hand, was suddenly disrupted by an unexpected chain of events that challenged her long-held belief in the infallibility of her judgment. Having assumed that she alone possessed the authority to determine who belonged in that privileged space, she now faced an unfolding reality that questioned every assumption she had made. Unbeknownst to her, A situation was developing that would soon force her to confront the consequences of her actions in a way that would shake her very sense of self. The young boy's quiet passage into the economy section was observed by others, their eyes following him with a mix of sympathy and unease. Among the silent witnesses was a fellow flight attendant, a newcomer in her own right, yet one whose sensitivity set her apart from the rigid adherence to protocol that had defined the experience thus far. This newer attendant, whose inner turmoil mirrored that of her senior colleague, could not help but feel a stirring of empathy as she saw the young traveler forced to relinquish his earned privilege. In the charged atmosphere of the cabin, the silent disapproval of those who witnessed the incident grew stronger, each heart silently questioning the fairness of a decision that had been handed down without a second thought. As the minutes passed and the cabin settled into an uneasy hush, the routine of the flight was abruptly interrupted by an announcement that sent ripples of apprehension through the carefully maintained order. The call for the senior attendant to report to the cockpit was a departure from the usual cadence of service, a clear sign that something of significant consequence was unfolding. With measured steps and a mounting sense of dread, she made her way to the cockpit, each stride echoing the internal realization that her actions had just set in motion events beyond her control. Inside the cockpit, the atmosphere was thick with tension. The seasoned pilot, whose calm exterior belied years of experience, was engaged in a conversation that radiated an authority far beyond the confines of routine operations. On a small screen, the image of a man in a high-rise office appeared, a silent arbiter whose presence carried the weight of an entire airline's reputation. This man, whose identity and influence transcended the everyday workings of the flight, was there to remind the attendant of the consequences of her unchecked assumptions. In that moment, her confident facade began to crumble, replaced by an acute awareness of the gravity of her error. The realization that a mistake born of prejudice could lead to far-reaching repercussions washed over her like a tidal wave, leaving her with little choice but to confront the unfolding reality. Back in the economy section, the young traveler continued to occupy his seat with a quiet dignity that defied the earlier humiliation. He remained calm, absorbing every nuance of the unfolding drama with a maturity that belied his age. As he sat gazing out of the window at the passing clouds, a silent witness to the beauty and impermanence of life, there was an undeniable strength in his stillness. The hurt of being displaced was mingled with an inner resolve, a determination to rise above the injustice that had momentarily defined his experience. His calm demeanor, marked by an unspoken question in his eyes, hinted at the understanding that the true worth of a person is measured not by the seat they occupy but by the integrity that resides within. In the meantime, the atmosphere among the crew and passengers was fraught with tension. The earlier incident had sparked a chain reaction, drawing quiet reflections from those who recognized that what had occurred was more than just a procedural mistake. It was a manifestation of deeper societal issues. The world outside the cabin might have been filled with accolades for those who achieved success, but inside this aircraft, the events had taken on an entirely different significance. It was as though the very air was charged with the weight of unspoken truths, each moment steeped in the realization that assumptions, however minor they might seem in the moment, could have profound consequences. The senior attendant's internal conflict deepened with every step she took as she navigated the corridors of the plane's service area. Memories of past flights and routine interactions now seemed tainted by the harsh light of scrutiny. For years, she had operated under the assumption that her experience and authority granted her an infallible right to decide who belonged in the upper echelons of service. But now, confronted with the stern reality of a young traveler's unjust removal from his rightful place, she was forced to re-examine every decision she had ever made. The incident had stripped away the layers of professional detachment she had so carefully built, revealing a raw vulnerability that lay beneath the surface. It was a moment of reckoning, a painful and humbling reminder that no one was immune to the consequences of their actions. As the flight continued its steady progress toward its destination, the cabin remained suspended in a state of uneasy introspection. Passengers who had once reveled in the exclusivity of first class now found themselves questioning the integrity of the system that had allowed such an injustice to occur. Whispers of doubt and silent glances were exchanged in corners of the cabin, each one a quiet protest against the blind acceptance of authority. The incident had become a catalyst for introspection, a moment that revealed how easily the veneer of order and privilege could be shattered by a single act of oversight. Every detail of the unfolding narrative was marked by a deep sense of irony. What was meant to be a celebration of academic achievement and personal triumph had been transformed into a lesson in humility and the cost of unchecked assumptions. The boy's journey from first class to economy was not merely a physical transition. It was a poignant symbol of the fallibility of human judgment, a reminder that no matter how polished the exterior, there could always be an undercurrent of error and injustice waiting to surface. Inside the service area of the plane, the senior attendant's mind raced with memories of past flights and countless interactions where the lines between duty and personal bias had blurred. She had prided herself on her efficiency, on the unquestioning adherence to protocols that had been handed down over years of service. Yet now, every step she took toward rectifying her mistake was fraught with a heavy burden of regret. The words she had once spoken with such certainty now echoed back at her, each syllable a painful reminder of the oversight that had cost a young traveler his rightful place of honor. In that moment, the realization dawned that true authority was not derived solely from experience or the enforcement of rules, but from the capacity to recognize one's errors and to learn from them, a lesson that was as transformative as it was humbling. Outside the immediate realm of the cabin, the broader implications of the incident began to take shape. It was not just an isolated mishap on a single flight. It was a microcosm of a larger societal pattern where assumptions, often made without reflection, could strip individuals of their dignity. The carefully orchestrated hierarchy of service and privilege, long taken for granted, was now under intense scrutiny. Every eye in the cabin, whether belonging to a fellow passenger, a colleague, or even the unseen eyes of society at large, seemed to ask the same unspoken question: how could such an error have been allowed to happen? The answer lay not in the rigidity of the rules but in the human capacity for empathy, understanding, and the willingness to see beyond the superficial trappings of status. As the flight pressed on, the young traveler's silent resilience became a focal point, a living testament to the idea that one's value is not diminished by external labels or the whims of authority. His presence in the modest confines of the economy section served as an enduring reminder that true worth is measured by the strength of one's character, not by the seat one occupies on an airplane. With every passing moment, his quiet defiance in the face of an unjust decision illuminated the deeper truth that society must continually strive to uphold the values of fairness, respect, and compassion. In a cascade of events that seemed both inevitable and tragic in its simplicity, the senior attendant found herself summoned to confront the consequences of her actions in a setting that magnified the gravity of her error. The summons to the cockpit, delivered in an almost imperceptible tone of authority, signaled the beginning of a process that would force her to reckon with the impact of her judgment. There, in the confines of that restricted space, far removed from the lavish comforts of first class, the true scale of her mistake was laid bare. The stern gaze of the airline's executive, transmitted through a screen that bridged the gap between the sky and the ground, was both a reprimand and an invitation to reflect on the responsibilities that came with wielding power. In that critical moment, every fiber of her being was confronted by the stark realization that no amount of experience or rigid adherence to protocol could justify the dismissal of an individual's dignity. The quiet drama unfolding in the aisle, the cabin, and even within the confined space of the cockpit was a tapestry woven from moments of introspection, regret, and an eventual call to action. Each detail, the hesitant steps of the young traveler, the silent judgment of onlookers, the palpable tension in the air, contributed to a narrative that was as much about personal transformation as it was about a single incident of perceived error. It was a narrative that urged every member of that airborne community to reconsider the assumptions that often go unchallenged, to question the biases that can inadvertently be given power by unquestioned authority. In the hours that followed, as the aircraft maintained its steady altitude and the world outside continued its endless rotation, the echoes of that single event resonated in unexpected ways. The young traveler, though physically confined to a less opulent section of the plane, carried with him an inner light, a resolve that was kindled by the knowledge that his worth was not diminished by a misplaced judgment. His silent defiance and quiet dignity stood in stark contrast to the rigidity of an outdated system, one that had long relied on superficial markers of status rather than on the deeper, more enduring qualities that define a person. For those who had borne witness to the unfolding events, the experience was a catalyst for profound reflection. It was a moment that challenged long-held beliefs about entitlement and privilege, prompting an internal dialogue about fairness and the true meaning of respect. In the muted glances exchanged among passengers and the thoughtful expressions of the crew, there emerged an unspoken acknowledgement that true kindness often lies in the willingness to see beyond the obvious, to recognize the humanity in every individual regardless of where they might be seated on a plane. Within the confines of that flight, a subtle revolution was taking place. The rigid structures that had once defined the boundaries of who belonged in the most exclusive spaces were being questioned by a young traveler's resilience and a senior attendant's dawning realization of her own fallibility. What had begun as a routine enforcement of rules had transformed into a powerful lesson, a lesson about the importance of empathy, the cost of hasty judgments, and the redemptive power of acknowledging one's mistakes. In this unfolding narrative, every moment was imbued with the possibility of change, every interaction a reminder that the true measure of one's character is revealed not in moments of certainty but in the willingness to admit error and to seek redemption. The interior of the aircraft became a living classroom where the principles of fairness and respect were being taught in real time. The incident, which could have easily been dismissed as a minor mishap in an otherwise ordinary flight, had instead emerged as a profound lesson in the complexities of human interaction. The senior attendant's journey from a position of unwavering authority to one of reflective accountability was a transformation that underscored the idea that every individual has the capacity to learn, to grow, and ultimately to change for the better. It was a reminder that the rules we so often take for granted are not infallible, and that true progress lies in our ability to listen to the quiet voices that speak out against injustice. As the aircraft began its gradual descent toward its destination, the atmosphere within the cabin remained heavy with contemplation. Every eye, every heart, and every mind that had been touched by the events of the flight carried with them a renewed sense of purpose, a resolve to challenge the assumptions that too often go unquestioned. The young traveler, having experienced a moment of profound vulnerability, now emerged as a symbol of hope and resilience. His quiet strength in the face of adversity was a beacon to all who had witnessed his journey, a reminder that dignity and respect are not commodities to be allocated based on arbitrary distinctions. In the final hours of the flight, as the aircraft's engines hummed steadily and the landscape below shifted from a tapestry of clouds to the clear outlines of a bustling city, the lingering impact of the day's events became ever more apparent. The senior attendant, now burdened with the weight of her own introspection, embarked on a solitary walk through the corridors of the plane, each step measured and laden with regret. Her mind replayed the sequence of events in meticulous detail, a mental litany of misjudgments and lost opportunities for compassion. It was a journey not just through the narrow aisles of an airplane, but through the depths of her own conscience, where every moment of failure served as a stark reminder of the human cost of pride and prejudice. Throughout the descent, the energy within the cabin was transformed into a quiet collective resolve, a silent pledge that the lessons of the day would not be forgotten. The young traveler's presence, now felt as a steady undercurrent of quiet defiance, underscored a truth that transcended the confines of the flight, that every individual, regardless of circumstance, deserves to be seen, heard, and treated with the utmost respect. In that shared understanding lay the potential for change, a promise that the experiences of one flight could ripple outward into the wider world, inspiring acts of kindness and empathy wherever injustice might otherwise take hold. The entire journey, from the luxurious heights of first class to the modest comfort of economy, had become an odyssey of transformation. The incident was a microcosm of the broader human experience, a vivid illustration of how a single act, born of unchecked assumptions, could ignite a chain reaction that challenged established hierarchies and redefined the very notion of worth. For every passenger on that flight, the experience was a call to awaken from the complacency of unquestioned routine and to embrace a more compassionate, thoughtful way of engaging with the world. In the aftermath of the events, as the aircraft's wheels finally touched down and the cabin slowly emptied, a lingering sense of introspection remained. The echoes of that day would continue to reverberate long after the passengers had disembarked, serving as a constant reminder that the true test of one's character is found in the choices made when no one is watching. The memory of a young traveler who had been forced to relinquish his earned honor, and the attendant who would spend countless moments in remorse and reflection, became a testament to the enduring power of empathy over authority, of understanding over blind adherence to protocol. Every detail of this unfolding narrative, from the quiet humiliation of a misassigned seat to the transformative moment of accountability in the cockpit, stands as a beacon for the importance of kindness. It is a story that transcends the confines of an airplane cabin and reaches into the very heart of what it means to treat one another with respect and compassion. In a world too often divided by superficial markers of success, the lessons learned during that fateful flight shine as a clarion call to all who believe that every person's dignity is worth defending. The events of that day, recounted with all their nuance and raw emotion, have become a living parable, one that continues to inspire reflection and change. Each detail, each moment of quiet introspection, reinforces the idea that the true measure of our humanity is not found in the privileges we enjoy, but in the empathy we extend to those who may be less fortunate or differently situated. The narrative of that flight remains an enduring reminder. Assumptions, no matter how deeply ingrained, can be challenged and transformed through the simple act of kindness. In the wake of the incident, as the aircraft's engines powered down and the final passengers made their way into the terminal, the impact of the day's events settled like a gentle, yet unyielding weight on every heart aboard. For some, it was a moment of painful self-realization. For others, a call to re-examine the societal constructs that too easily permitted injustice to go unchallenged. In that shared space of vulnerability and introspection, the legacy of that single flight became clear. A legacy not of division, but of the enduring power of empathy and the possibility of redemption for those willing to listen, to learn, and to change. As the memory of the flight began to fade into the routines of daily life, the lessons it imparted continued to resonate. The young traveler's quiet strength and the attendant's hard-earned remorse forged an unspoken promise that every future encounter would be guided by the principles of fairness, respect, and genuine human connection. In the silent aftermath of that day, the cabin of the airplane had not only carried passengers from one destination to another but had also transported them, if only for a fleeting moment, into a deeper understanding of the complexities of human interaction. This was a journey that would forever remind each of them that the true value of any experience lies in the capacity to recognize our shared humanity and to treat each other with the kindness and dignity that every soul inherently deserves. In reflecting upon these events, one finds that the narrative is not simply a recounting of a mistake or a moment of oversight, but rather an exploration of the delicate interplay between authority and empathy. It is a chronicle of how deeply held beliefs can be unsettled by a single act of compassion, and how even in moments of profound error, there exists the possibility for growth and transformation. The journey of that flight, with all its unexpected twists and turns, stands as an enduring call for us all to embrace the kind of understanding that transcends the boundaries of status and expectation. The lessons learned during that fateful journey continue to ripple outward, touching the lives of those who were there and inspiring others long after the flight had ended. The incident serves as a testament to the idea that every encounter carries with it the potential to redefine our sense of self and to challenge the very notions of who is worthy of honor. It is a reminder that the simple act of acknowledging one's mistakes, of stepping forward to make amends, can pave the way for lasting change, both in ourselves and in the broader world we share. Thus, in the quiet aftermath of that transformative flight, a new understanding began to take root among all who had borne witness. It was an understanding forged not in the harsh glare of judgment but in the gentle, persistent light of empathy. A light that illuminated the truth that every person, regardless of circumstance or outward appearance, holds within them a reservoir of dignity and worth that no rule or regulation can ever diminish. This narrative, as it continues to inspire and educate, stands as a living reminder that the measure of our humanity is found not in the seats we occupy or the privileges we command, but in the capacity for compassion that resides within us all. And so, the story of that flight, its quiet struggles, its moments of introspection, and its ultimate call to kindness, remains an enduring chapter in the ongoing journey toward a more empathetic and inclusive world. Each step taken down the narrow aisles of that airplane, each moment of silent defiance in the face of an unjust order, and each act of accountability that followed, all contribute to a larger narrative that challenges us to question our assumptions and to embrace a future where every individual is valued for who they truly are. In the quiet aftermath of that transformative journey, as the airplane touched down and life resumed its familiar rhythm, the lasting impact of that day continued to echo in the hearts of everyone on board. The unfolding events had not only redefined what it meant to claim one's rightful place, but had also challenged every individual to rethink the boundaries of respect and compassion. That single act of unjust removal and the subsequent humbling confrontation became more than just a moment in time. It evolved into a powerful lesson about the human spirit's resilience and the undeniable strength found in admitting one's mistakes. In the soft glow of a new day, the reflections from that flight lingered like an indelible imprint. The young traveler's calm dignity, in spite of the injustice he faced, was a beacon of quiet defiance, urging every observer to honor the truth that our worth is not dictated by external markers, but by the character that resides within. Meanwhile, the attendant's journey from certainty to regret served as a stark reminder that true authority lies not in rigid rules, but in the willingness to see beyond them, to acknowledge when we have wronged another and to take steps toward making things right. This story, a vivid testament to the power of empathy and accountability, challenges us all to pause and examine our own lives. It is an invitation to look beyond superficial judgments and to embrace the rich tapestry of human dignity, regardless of the circumstances. Every act of kindness, every moment of self-reflection, adds to the legacy of a world where respect and fairness are cherished above all else. If this story has touched your heart and stirred your thoughts, please take a moment to support the movement by liking, sharing, and commenting below. Your feedback helps us spread the message that every individual deserves to be treated with dignity. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Trend Story Life. Together we can celebrate every act of kindness and work towards a world where every story inspires change. Help us reach 1,000 likes and join a community dedicated to uplifting the human spirit through real, powerful stories.